Welcome back to SendCutSend Community College. This is our office hour session where we answer your questions and break things down in a clear and simple way. Grab your notebooks and let's get into it. As you use CAD, you're going to have to use other people's models and files. Now in this one, we're going to answer the question, what if that other person's file type is a nested DXF? And how do I get individual components out to get to a manufacturer? Now, what do I mean by that? It's kind of a mouthful. If I have a nested DXF, I would have multiple parts that are in the same file type or DXF. I would have a triangle, circle, or rectangular square here. These are individual parts, but they're all together in that one file. Now, there's two main reasons that you don't want to do this. The first one is that the overall outside dimension is going to be that nest dimension. So if I take that overall length and width here, that can go over the manufacturer's essentially recommended or allowed dimensions for a part size, and you can get it kicked back in DFM, even though the individual parts underneath it actually will fit within that sheet. The second thing is that we can have a ton of space in here that we maybe didn't nest it correctly. Manufacturers like SendCutSend are gonna nest your parts among other people or other manufacturers' parts, and that's gonna end up having a better yield than what you're producing on that nested DXF. So you can actually increase the cost of your parts artificially here, and the better way to do it is to have individual parts, so you're only paying for that material that you're using. Now coming over to the computer here, we're gonna go into Fusion to show this. There's two different ways in which we can pull that DXF in. We can go to File, Open, and then select that DXF. However, that's gonna put us into a sketch DXF mode, and we're not gonna be able to get individual components out of that as easy. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go to Solid, we're gonna go to Insert in the ribbon, and we're gonna go to DXF. All we have to do is select a plane and the DXF that we're looking at importing. We're gonna do this from our computer. We have a little smudge pot design here. We're gonna open this up. It's a fairly large DXF. It might take a second to load. And once it comes in, we can move this DXF around within respect of the origin. But for this, we actually don't really care where it comes in. We're gonna click OK. The first thing we're gonna see here is that now we have all of those individual shapes for our components. We can see here that we have this larger body is nested really actually nicely within this little U channel. However, we have these two parts here that are not as well nested. We have all this empty space here. And with that, you're gonna be paying for that empty space, so it's better to break them up into individual parts. So the first thing that we're gonna wanna do is break these into individual components. And we're gonna do that using the sheet metal rules. So we're gonna go to sheet metal and flange, and we're gonna select on one of the essentially individual parts and create a component from that. So we want to make sure that we don't select new body, we want to select component. The material on this one we're actually going to be using is 104 thousandths manual seal, so we're going to select OK. The first thing we see is that our DXF disappears, and that's okay. All we have to do is go back up to our tree underneath sketch and re-show that so that we can use it again. That's going to be the only time we actually have to do that. Now that first component now here, we can label these individually. I'm just gonna call this part 1. And it's really important to do that for a later on step that we're gonna get into. Now on this, we're just gonna rinse and repeat. And this is going to be breaking all of these nested parts into their individual components. And that is the overall goal of this one right here. So we did that second one. We're gonna do one more here. New component, clicking OK. So I got 3 of these done. We would do this for the entire assembly to get it done there. Now, the goal of this, though, is to get individual components to the manufacturer. So let's talk about the 2 ways now that we have these broken up on how we can get those files to places like SendCutSend. Back in the CAD, the first way we can do that is through DXFs. So we're going to go to part 1. We can activate this component, meaning that we're working underneath that component directly. We can create a sketch, selecting that surface here and click Finish. Now that does a projection on that profile that we can allow, or we're now allowed to use. We can actually hide our overall nested DXF as well right now. We can drop this menu down, and underneath it now we have that new sketch. And we can right-click on this and export that DXF, and this is a great way to get it back to SendCutSend. The other way to do this is to go to, we can actually reopen or activate our whole assembly here. We can go to Utilities, open up that SendCutSend plugin, and as that pops up, we can see Part 1, Component 9, Component 10, because I didn't label them yet, but we can see those individual bodies coming through. This is a very easy way. We can just click Start Quote once we select Body 1. That's going to take you through the process of adding it directly to your cart with SendCutSend. And it's just that easy. Just remember to use components instead of bodies. To get your questions answered, leave a comment underneath the lessons, and we'll see you on the next one.